Hi, everybody. Welcome back to We Know Scripted TV, where today it's the fourth day of Squid Game, and what they gave to us is a brand new game and a hell of a cliffhanger to talk about. There's a lot to break down, and of course, I'm joined by somebody that I would say between the two of us together, Chappell, we output the same number of podcasts as a team of five people.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. I think that you and I in a podcast, a relay, oh, we got it. We got it locked down. There would be no issue with who's going to do what. We do it all, we knock it out. But these people are in hell. I had some big reactions to some of the stuff we saw in this episode. I have some questions. I just want to talk it out. Okay. I just
Yeah.
want to talk it out. I didn't need a cliffhanger so early on. I have some emotions and some thoughts. We'll get to it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it wasn't that I wasn't all in on Squid Game season 2 beforehand, but like now I feel like I'm really in. Whether it was the surprise of the brand new game, whether it was maybe the surprise that some of these new contestants would bring, or the surprises of these kind of rogue elements on both sides of the coin here of Squid Game in the form of, all right, what does Inho look like as a contestant? And how does Noel kind of look? And how are we judging, the would you rather of being the merciless killer versus the one that's also kind of stymieing the organ harvesting organization that's happening behind the scenes. We found out a lot in this episode, and it makes me feel like things are really picking up in a great way, only to not only find out, Chappell, and remember that there's only 3 episodes left, but yeah, to your point, Netflix reality is, of course, semi-miserably known for leaving their eliminations as part of their cliffhanger, so you have to check out the next episode. And not to say that Squid Game hasn't done this before. They did this with the tug of war game back in season 1, but still never fun, especially because it leaves 5 new characters' fates up in the air going into episode 5.
Yeah, and I don't know how I feel about all of this. It's so much. There's so much to process because we did spend this episode getting so much information out there. Like we were talking about red jumpsuit 011. We were talking about last episode, like, oh my God, like she might be the devil. She's out here killing these people. They have a chance to survive, but she's making sure that they're dead, only to find out that maybe, just maybe, she's doing this for a mercy standpoint or to shut down this illegal organ trade or whatever they're going on. But it also sounds like she signed up, for this. She said, I will do anything to get my child back. And they said, okay, even let us harvest organs. And she's like, no, not that.
Yeah,
Not that.
exactly. But I draw the line somewhere. And granted, my line is much further away than every other person's line in the existence of humanity. But we always have one exception to the rule, and that's my one exception.
Right. And I just thought that was kind of strange. And also, she kind of got some rank. I thought that was weird too. She's making orders to people. She's talking to, this guy who we just meet, and he's in this black jumpsuit. He seems like he's in charge. He's got a square mask on. And he's like, hey, I need you to let us do this organ donor thing that we're doing, this trade, whatever we're doing. And she's like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. So, lady, where do you get off? This man could kill you. Like, I'm trying to figure out who she is and how come she has so much pull. Why are you that decorated to where you can sit around and make decisions here at the Squid Game?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing because, I mean, it's kind of a mutually assured destruction thing, quite literally, in the form of, yes, this manager, which does seem like in the hierarchy of Squid Game, like there are red jumpsuit people who wear the square mask, and then there's like this guy who is in the control room, kind of seems to be the director of a lot of stuff, maybe filling in a bit for Inho's absence, but does seem like at the same time he's trying to get away with some stuff on the slide. I mean, where did these people get off, Chappell? You
Right.
asked that about Noel, but like 3 years ago, granted that was 3 whole Squid Games ago, but you saw firsthand not only this doctor get strung up, but 3 or 4 of your fellow employees get
Mhm.
paid criminally for their criminal activities. They were the ones that were running this black market organ harvesting ring behind the scenes of the games, purposely bringing in these people, not killing them in the moment, just to make sure they get the freshest organs possible. And you made a lesson out of them. You strung them up so that everyone behind and in front of the camera could view them. Did you think, like, while the cat's away, the mice will play? We're going to try this again? Did they just decide Jurassic Park style, like, well, it didn't work that first time, but I think if we tried it again over the next 3 years, we could really perfect it? Why are they thinking they could possibly succeed where we saw glaring failures last season?
everybody thinks they would be smarter than the person who did it before. It's like, I saw what you did, and I'm not going to make those same mistakes. I'm a little bit wilier than you.
Brought in an outside doctor. We didn't put a doctor in the game.
I mean, that was a necessary step. I was like, well, at least we're learning something, maybe don't use one of the players. But you're right. It has to be because Inho is not around, right? Because even when this woman is just like, hey, I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna allow you to continue to do this. If I can stop it, I'm going to mercy kill these people every time. And they're like, no, you're not. Actually, you're not. She's like, actually, you can't tell me what to do. And I'm thinking, well, why not? Why can't you? And I'm thinking, there can't be somewhere she can go to complain about this. Like, where do you take your HR complaints at this point? Inho's not around. So I guess you have to just sit on it. Like, well, you can't do nothing to me and I can't do nothing to you. So we're just going to keep doing this until we run out of space. We run out of time. Because I haven't figured out why she's not fired. Why is this lady still at work?
Yeah, and what does being fired mean? I mean, the other thing on top of that, and this really just shows how lax work standards have gone from under Il-nam to under Inho, is these guys are just throwing off their mask willy-nilly. And maybe it's a sign of the times. Of course, we know that season 1 came out in the fall of 2021 when masking, I think, was less of a taboo subject than it is in 2024. But even like when these bros are commiserating about the organ harvesting, half of them have their masks off. The manager just goes behind the scenes, like immediately rips it off. Now, granted, maybe that's better for like a work-life balance and that it probably feels so stifling and hot under there. But at the same time, screw this idea of you're just a cog in the machine. You are a faceless person in here. These people are more than happy to just flaunt their faces to anybody around them. And considering how last time, like, again, the showdown that happened with the doctor as a result of all this calamity was that the doctor insisted that the guy that he held, or no, that was another person, had taken a guy hostage at the end of the game and said, like, okay, I have the gun on you. You reveal who you are. I want to see who is one of the people that is responsible for all this madness. And the guy did it and then immediately got killed because that's the rules as well. There are rules on the other side. Everyone is equal, apparently, under the eye of the Squid Game. And one of them is your identity is basically an unknown at all times.
Yeah, except now everybody knows everybody and nobody cares. They just keep ripping off their masks left and right. And I think it's just there's nobody in charge. Who is running the ship? Who is the captain right now?
Yeah.
I think that they see each other like, okay, who's going to make the call to kill me? Is it going to be this officer guy? I mean, it sounds like he could, but if he could, why is he letting Noel talk to him crazy? I just felt like if you are in charge and you're being shady, you would want to get rid of the squeaky wheel, right? You got somebody who is really stepping out of line, get them back in line. Uniformity seems like it's very important here. Everybody's wearing the same colors. Everybody's got their own specific shapes that they're lined in, and so for everything to be so organized, you're letting an agent of chaos wander around doing whatever she wants to do. And I just find that very fascinating that nobody has decided to shut it down.
Yeah, and we get a little bit of Noel's origin story here. So it wasn't just that, assumingly, she shot her North Korean officer husband to make a break for the DMZ, but seems like she went full John Wick or like Cap in the elevator and just took down a whole bunch of people, got to the demarcation line, ended up getting taken down and woke up in this hospital where it seems like this guy in particular recruited her, which is really interesting. You and I asked, and Rob talked about this in the very beginning of the season, and especially in episode 2, once we found out that Noel was actually not a player, but a person behind the mask, as to, okay, is there a recruiter for them? Evidently, there is, and it also answers our question, I suppose, as to whether or not she's a new employee. She's very tenured. She's several years into the game, and maybe to your earlier point, that gives her also a little bit of pull as she pulls the trigger on some of these people.
Yeah, but 7 years ago, that was within the timeline that Gi-hun was there the first time, right?
Oh, yeah, that outdates Gi-hun. Gi-hun was there. If you add everything together, he was there 3 years ago.
Right. So is she just now finding out about the organ thing? Is this new information for her? Because I don't think she was shutting it down back then. I mean, we didn't meet her, so I don't know if she was in the inner workings or if she just got brought into that part of the organization. You would think that for 7 years, if she was hired kind of as this mercenary that they had to pull out because she has like special skills. He talks about how we got you in the hospital and we couldn't believe all the carnage that you had left behind you. It's like the X-Men or something like that getting recruited by Professor X. He shows up like, man, we saw you lift that car with your brain.
Yeah, do you think there's like a Cerebro out here in Squid Game HQ where they just like identify some of the worst, most malicious people out there to try to recruit them?
It's got to be something, right? Where they're looking for people with special skills who don't mind doing a job like this. But again, you brought her in 7 years ago, and now here it is, year 7, and she's, hey, just I don't know. I've been here for 7 years, and I think this organ thing is against the rules. I'm kind of a company man. I don't really, I don't like to step out of line too much. So I'm gonna push back against the system. But why were you hired? Were you hired to do like to be a part of this organ situation, or were you just hired to do your job and now you've eased your way into enough trust to where they've let you in on the seedy stuff that they're doing behind the scenes and you're just not down for it? Like now it's like I draw the line right here because this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah, I mean, listen, 7-year itch happens to some of the best of us, even in the jobs that we love the most. And it does seem like, for what it's worth, this is kind of Noel's dream job. I mean, she
Right.
said the reason why she joined is to kind of be like the Dr. Kevorkian of I'm going to put people out of their misery, those who feel entirely hopeless. And ironically enough, she kind of joined with the hope of, okay, maybe you could get me kind of connected with someone to help me find my kid. What's also interesting is that, to me at least, Chappell, and I know this reference will be very recently found on you, it's very much like Juliet being initially recruited to the island in Lost of like, I'm going to help your sister. You can leave eventually, and then eventually turns into many, many years and decades perhaps down the line. So maybe that was the case with Noel here. I mean, what's also interesting is that the manager very much couches to her, I brought you in from the cold. I wanted to give you a second chance, which, again, is something that we've heard being said to these contestants as well in the Squid Game. So we really are getting to see this being two sides of the same $1 bill, as it were.
The idea that the Squid Game is created to help people is still the fascinating thing to me about the show, right? Because even when he's talking about it, he's
I
like,
mean, it more so
no,
helps person.
right, because he's telling her, no, this even the organ thing we're doing is to help people. Because now we can get these organs fresh and we can give them to people who need them. I'm like, that is a lie. That is a
Do you
lie.
think that that NDA that they sign with their fingerprint is like them signing up to be an organ donor?
Probably. Do not sign up to be a organ. No, I'm joking. But like, it just feels like for the Squid Game people, the propaganda that they're pushing is like, no, the games itself is to help people. We bring in the people who will mercy kill them to help people. But now we're even harvesting organs as well because that can help people. That everything we do can help people. You have to be in on the fact that some people have to die for other people to have a better life. And I think that they're pushing that behind the scenes, but it's permeating throughout the game as well. Because we'll hear that argument being made by Inho even when he's trying to convince Gi-hun and the rest of them. I don't know. I just feel like we should stay here. We should keep competing. You inspired me. Although you kept yelling, "Don't play, don't complete, please quit, leave the game." I felt inspired to actually play.
Yeah,
And
you
stay.
really negged us there, Gi-hun. And so
Right.
all 182 of us were on board now. We're in love with you.
Yeah, and some of these people gotta die because if they die, we can split the money more and we can actually help each other. Because quite frankly, the split that we would be getting right now, matter of fact, if I won all the money, some of us would still be in debt, So it's like, it's crazy that that's the narrative that's going around, and it's like the Kool-Aid that everybody's drinking because slowly you can see people kind of using that to sway people to believe whatever it is that they want to believe. But when it comes down to it, you still have to watch the people's bodies, like their souls leave their body as they are shot and killed in front of you a lot of times. And for me, that's just a deal breaker. But again, I'm not in these people's situations, so maybe it just hasn't gotten that bad.
I mean, what's interesting is, of course, the triangle-faced people are known as soldiers. And listen, for an episode that is going to actually focus somewhat comically on the military, that is kind of like a militaristic view as well as to like, how do you sort of mentally excuse yourself for taking another life? And yet again, we hear this metaphor of the contestants on Squid Game being trash. And in a manner of speaking, the way the manager is putting it, what he's doing is recycling. One
Yeah.
man's trash is another man's treasure. And if he happens to make some money from it, the way of them kind of pitching altruism from it, I think not only is a fun, again, anti-capitalist way to look at these things, probably also helps them sleep a little better at night, which they need considering the accommodations are not that great.
Right. If you're going to make an argument for harvesting organs, the argument, of course, is we're killing them anyway. They're dying anyway. At least somebody, either if he's telling the truth, then somebody can use this organ. This could be for somebody. But also, who cares if I'm making money on the side? Like to honestly, from her point of view, I'm really trying to feel like, no, what is your issue? Like, don't get me wrong. I know that like like ethically, this is wrong, but isn't a lot of this ethically wrong? Like all of it is wrong. And for you to draw the line at, but I don't want you to make no side money off of this. Okay, or maybe I don't want these people to suffer. You don't think watching 100 other people die at the hands of a Sarah Beth doll and then like waiting their turn until they screw up and just the stress of that is suffering enough? It's like, nah. But once you shoot them, they should be dead. That is where my heart stops. If they get hit with a bullet, they have to die right that second. It's what I'm doing out the kindness of my heart because I'm a good person.
Well, Chappell, listen, you cover House of Villains, and I haven't made my way entirely through season 2, but I do believe one Wes Bergman, right, had a little bit of this odd line to draw as well, where he's like, I've done all this shady stuff to the point where it put me on this show as one of the titular villains, but I would never swear on a family member. Like, that's my limit. And yeah, it's always odd to see people's perspectives, where granted, it's a little apples and oranges here, but even the most duplicitous people still have one or two things that they would not do.
And it's crazy because like Wes, sometimes the goalpost just moves. He's like, I would never do that, but I do this other incredibly ridiculous thing. And you're like, well, I would have rather you just did the other thing if this is what you were going to do, because I don't know about either of these things, you know. So I like it because all these people are human, right? Like there is no, like, once you step into the immoral on this show, it's all just shades of gray at that point, right? Like, this person is killing people. Are they wrong? This person is in the Squid Game, but other people have to die for them to win. Are they wrong? You know, how did you get in this situation in the first place? If you push somebody to survive, you know, you probably look like an awful person. But also, if you beat that person in a foot race, you probably, you know, you're still condemning them to death. So I think for a lot of these characters, we're going to be asking, you know, is this I don't even know if you could ask if this is a good person. Like, are they acting in a standard that is aligned with who they are presenting us, you know, as a character? If it becomes outside of who they're presenting us with, I think that's when we can judge them. But aside from that, I think all bets are off when it comes to a lot of these characters.
So we got to talk about the other side of this very enigmatic, you know, character side of things. And we got to talk about Inho here, because obviously, big twist at the end of last episode. I think we have a lot of things confirmed. First, like, he is Inho, if you will. He's not like pulling himself out during the games to be like, okay, I'm going to masquerade during the dorm situation, but in case things get hairy, let me sit out to make sure that I don't die. Like, he truly, I think, has become fully obsessed with this idea of showing up Gi-hun and has thrown himself into the game. So now we have this interesting, like, Boston Rob versus Russell situation, right? Where it's these two returning winners, one very well known, one completely hidden, including from the other former winner. And I gotta say, like, this has quickly become one of my favorite things in the show, because I have no idea where this man's mind is, Chappell. And I wonder if putting himself back in the green jumpsuit partially put his mind back in the state that he was in when he won the first time.
You know, I have some real issues with Inho. I hate this man and everything that he says. I hate everything he does.
Even more than Thanos? He leapfrogged Thanos?
He leapfrogged Thanos for me.
Wow.
Thanos, he dropped the bar, and I flinched. I'm not going to lie to you. I flinched. But Inho, I have so many questions because a part of me knows that he's won the game before. And so now he's back in. And he's like, I don't feel like he's in here competing to see, like, let me see if I can win it again. Can I be the Inho DS Twine of the show?
Let me shake off that rust, see if the old boy can do it once more.
Right. I mean, somebody here might be a 2-time winner. I can't let it be Gi-hun, but it feels like he's there to just mess with Gi-hun's mind. He's like, hey, I know you feel like you've decided the Squid Game is bad and that you're helping people by being here and yelling at everybody. But I'm going to explain to you in the most subtle ways, or if you're watching it from home, probably the least subtle ways, how maybe you're a part of the problem and you're no better than anybody else here. Because he starts outlining how, hey, I really would have I was going to quit. But then you said that you won. And I thought, wow, I could win too. I could change my life. Listen to this sob story, this ridiculous sob story. It might be true or not.
Yeah, we're like the file photos that we show during this extended confessional that Inho gives.
Yeah, he's just like, boom, boom, all this stuff. I had this, my wife was pregnant. She had a terminal illness, all this stuff. It's like, so for me, this makes total sense. I need to change my life. Look at this awful situation I'm in. Can't you empathize with the fact that I'm like trying to do this? And I'm like, Gi-hun, pay attention. This man says, and I don't care who else has to die for me to make this happen. If we got to kill some other people for me to make this happen, I do not care. Like, that is a person that you do not want in the Squid Game with you. And he's always going to vote to continue because he's already identified that I'm in it. I'm in it to win it.
These
And
games are my last hope, he says.
yeah. And it's like, okay, cool. And it kind of tries, like, in a way, it feels like he's trying to humanize himself, but it also feels like he's wagging his finger at Gi-hun. Like, some of them are in a situation where to them it makes sense. They are between, it's a life and death situation. This is a life-changing amount of money. And how can you fault them to be willing to do whatever it takes to save a loved one or to save themselves? And that's the problem, because this is ultimately a game about votes now. And you have to have the majority of the people voting along with you. And if you plan on quitting this, and it feels like this narrative, if it starts to just, creep around through these 100 or so, some odd people, then that too might start to weigh on Gi-hun, where he says, I don't want to quit. I mean, if I quit, then they don't get the money. They need this money. Look at this man. I was like, Inho gotta go. I don't like him. I hate him.
No, he's good. He's good at this, though. That's the problem,
He
Chappell,
is.
is that, like, he's really, really damn good at this. Now, for what it's worth, I do not think the story that he sold Gi-hun is fake. I think from what we found out last or 2 episodes ago, I think this was the actual story of Inho. Of course, we learned that his wife is dead, that she had this illness that he was unable to prevent, that he did borrow a lot of money that kind of disgraced him and put him in a lot of debt. And so I don't think he was necessarily fabricating this entire thing. And I think actually the way the actor delivered that monologue was probably him actually harkening back to like some very sincere feelings, which again, I think is going to make things really interesting because he obviously came into the games to do a job, which was to, again, prevent Gi-hun from kind of breaking the structure, breaking the wheel that he had set up. But at the same time, I think it's only inevitable that he's going to get himself caught up in it, back in that headspace that he was in. The other thing, Chappell, is that we got to see a little bit of a sense as to maybe why either he was good the first time or like he has become very, very good since, because I love that he walked into the middle of this brouhaha against MG Coin and is like, 2-on-1 isn't fair. You know what's fairer? 1-on-2, because I'm going to kick 2 people's asses without even flinching.
This guy should be put down immediately. Like immediately.
Where's Noel when you need her?
Right. Somebody smother him with a pillow. I was like, that's a menace. That is a menace. He said he will do whatever it takes. And then he showed you that he could literally just start beating everybody's ass. You got Marines.
But he got applause. He got applause for it.
Yeah, because he listen, when you're beating up a bully, people are gonna be like, all right, you can do it. But
Yeah.
like, y'all, if this man decided to just start going around the room beating people, y'all gonna have to jump him. Y'all gonna have to jump him. And I'm not talking about 2 people. I'm talking about everybody gonna have to attack this man at the same time. I can't trust him. And I thought that, to me, when you got the Marines being like, nah, I'm good, hiding their tattoos and stuff, like, hey, he's built different. This man is crazy. So I enjoyed, obviously, him stopping them from bullying another guy. But aside from that, Inho, he can really go. And I think that he also might be getting a little too comfortable because we do see him kind of slip and call Gi-hun by his name.
He literally pulled down the mask, basically.
Yeah, on accident. And Gi-hun caught on, but I don't know if he knows. Like, it's kind of like he's like, kind of, that's interesting. That's weird that
would be like an A to C jump of like, oh, he knows my name. Clearly, this is the masked man who is also a previous winner of the games who has inseminated himself back in to teach me a lesson.
Right. Like, that would be crazy. I could never foresee a world where that happens. But I do like Inho's, like, if his job here is to keep Gi-hun from ruining everything, I want to know what extent he's going to, right? Because to me, it feels like he's placed in the game, and we saw the old man kind of placed in the game in that situation where it's like he knows what's coming, he knows the rules, he's kind of got the cheat codes, but he's still playing the game, right? Like, he could have very well lost that tug of war. He had the right tactic, but if they didn't listen to him, they all die, right? And so we can see that stuff happening all the time. I don't think you can guarantee that you can get through the cookie task. Like, it seems like something that like you could practice or maybe, but I don't think there's 100% chance, like, unless they're just not going to ever shoot and kill him, right? Like, they're just going to keep coming up with reasons to not kill him. There were reasons to believe that the old man could have died in the Squid Game. But as far as Inho goes, Inho says, hey, tell me what task is next. And when he realizes, or when we see him kind of get the information about, you got the honeycomb, you got to do the shapes, and then we see that the game has changed. I was wondering if this is production interference? Does he call and say,
Ah,
hey, they know about the cookie, bring in the next task? Or was this already pre-planned?
yeah. Was the cookie task the slip and slide of Squid Game, where like everyone keeps talking about it, they're expecting it, but it never comes at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm grateful for it. Look, when it comes to reality TV structure, I think there is certainly a lot of very valid discourse about like don't fix what's not broken, right? That there is a
Mhm.
lot of appeal to the constants of a show and then the variables or the various contestants that you bring in and react differently. But also like how many iterations can we see of people freaking out over being able to lick their way through a honeycomb? I'm
Right.
grateful for the new sites, for this sort of relay race opportunity that we'll get into. And I would imagine if I'm Inho as well, and especially when it comes to the VIPs, because I imagine the VIPs are coming back every year. Do they want to see the same thing time after time?
Yeah.
Maybe they were the ones that sort of were putting in the fan request of change up the challenges a little bit. So Inho's like, all right, paint a rainbow on the ground, grab some jacks, grab some flying stones. We're going to do a brand new thing here.
Yeah, and some people do like like you said, the fan favorite games. The ones that we come here to see. If Sarah Beth isn't the first challenge, is this even Squid Game? Like
Exactly.
you kind of have to start with red light, green light. But I think being able to switch up the games is interesting because, again, were you always going to switch up the game, or is it? This is fire making challenge that we came up with because Ben couldn't idle his way to the end. Like did we have to call an audible here because Gi-hun knew too much? He had everybody prepped up. Hey, the easiest one is the triangle. And then tomorrow, when I see if I'm sure there's honeycomb, I'm gonna give you all the cheat codes. They say, okay, we'll show you.
Though,
Try
to
to
be
cheat code your
fair,
way through this.
Gi-hun does have a nightmare about how a worst case scenario could have emerged even from that game, right? Which is to like give, Pascal's million triangles and say, yeah, it's still going to be the
Yeah.
same shape, but we're going to make the, AP calculus version of it.
Mike, I scrumped. I screamed so loud, I scrumped. I was like, what is what? Because me not realizing it was a dream at first, I was like, oh my God, oh my God. And I said, oh, okay, whew, all right, there's no way. There's no way. I don't even know what that looks like. Do you just like chop out all the little triangles and like,
Yeah, I don't know if you're supposed to get all the little triangles or just like because the outer edge is much more jagged, it's the harder thing to do. And they just wanted to make an intricate pattern for the hell of it.
yeah, but when he's having this dream and everybody is blaming him and yelling at him like, you lie, you told us you did this, that, and the other. Like this is you said you had to tell it. I was like, all right. Maybe there's a case to be made that some of these people can die because they're stressing you out as well.
You know what? You know who needs to go? I know
Who can
that,
go?
you have an hexagram with Thanos and Inho. For me, it's Mr. $10 billion debt. Like, this
Yeah, I
boomer
hate
ass
him.
guy
I hate
is
him.
so high and mighty, including when the next game he's like, "Puh, puh, 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 this is not Dalgona.
Yeah,
Clearly you know nothing. I'm so offended by this. Like, sir, that was a charity. You are
right.
like, yeah, you got handed a counterfeit bill. Be happy you got handed anything in the first place. Because otherwise you'd just be wandering around by your damn self, hoping that this could just chip into the huge morass of a debt you dug in this world and the grave that you're probably digging for yourself that you are on the way out. So who are you? You are no asset. You are $10 billion version of a liability.
He had the nerve to be like, you convinced us to stay in the game. I said, there is nothing this man said convinced you to say that. Like, you told us that we were going to be good. This is your fault. No, he stood up there and yelled and pleaded for y'all to just please, no matter what, just leave the game. We don't have to live like this. It's tearing me apart. Like, he did all that. And all you heard was, what you won. So you're saying it's possible. And
Yeah.
and now you're blaming him because the game has changed. That's crazy. You're insane. You can go. The first chance, look, again, we're in the Squid Game. People have to die. Got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet. That's the narrative that everybody's pushing. In his case, let him go. Let him go. I'm not gonna be on a team with him at any point because if he goes, I don't want to be tied to him. He got to go. I'd be praying for the bridge. Like, oh, the first chance I get, I'm gonna push you off this thing because you could tell he's gonna be a problem. He's not on your side.
Yep.
He's gonna be impossible to sway. And if anything, he's gonna be trying to make you look bad throughout because y'all are just not aligned. And so if of all these people, he's on my list of people that can go. I think my list is getting really long. That's why there's so many numbers. I do
Which
need
is
to
ironic because the numbers are getting smaller.
right, but I need them to whittle this down some more so I can like make a definitive list. Because at first I was thinking, if you voted to keep playing, you could go. Like, you can go. I don't need to tell you nothing. You
Right.
chose to keep playing. You figure it out on your own. I'm not giving you the cheat codes. I'll give the triangle information to all the people who said they wanted to go home. You know, I'll give the cheat codes to them. I ain't working with none of you circles. I can't do it. No squares in my circle.
Well, let's talk about somebody who, Chappell, I'd be intrigued to see is on your list because there's more than one pre-existing relationship
They know
in
each other.
Squid Game season 2. Yeah, this is turning into very much, I guess this is more Big Brother 21 than Big Brother 6, right? Because it's not like everybody knows each other unless that's the big twist. As it turns out, we got a whole ass pair of exes. The X Factor is here, Chappell. So, 222, who is Jun-hee, who is the pregnant woman, and 333, MG
Okay.
Coin, they were coupled up. And this makes a lot of sense because when we first met Jun-hee, remember, she was at the OBGYN looking at a player card, and there was someone who was also playing, playing the envelope game in the subway station and refused a call from Jun-hee. I didn't recognize MG Coin. He was wearing a bucket hat. I think maybe his hair was a little bit lighter. So I
Make it
did not
rain.
know that that was him. That is him. And it is an incredibly awkward dynamic, to say the least. And, I think we'll spend the next part of this episode prognosticating who's going to make it through. I think that Jun-hee has a significant amount of plot armor, considering the people that she is on a team with, and also the fact that she now has this storyline with her ex.
Yeah, 222 and 333. We get into baby mama drama,
And they
baby
got
daddy drama.
111 baby.
Right. And this makes everything very complicated because we're finding out that he told her to buy the crypto as well. It's like, dang, MG Coin, what are you doing? You're the worst.
Yeah, did Inho just really set up MG Coin by just filling this cast full of, like, at the point they started, I would say at least a third of them wound up in the situation they did because of this one guy's choice.
Yeah, this new age gambling, right? And so he's like, I made the decision to tell y'all about the bad tip that I got. Y'all all took it. I took it as well, and now we're all here together. But the added layer is that apparently this is his baby mama, and so if when the baby is born, he actually gave her money to get an abortion. She decided not to, and so now he's like, "You got to get out of here and take care of the baby." She kind of she don't want to hear that. She's like, "What baby? You didn't even want me to have the baby. Leave me alone. I don't want
To be
to
fair,
work with you."
she did vote no, but now she's kind of stuck in it.
Well, that's the thing. He voted yes. So even when he's like, "Why are you here?" She's like, "I tried to get out. Boy, screw you." I was like, yeah. That's why I wasn't so mad that Thanos was beating his ass. Cause it's like, well,
Though I don't know, not to put this all on Jun-hee, because Lord knows she's been through so much with this asshole. But like, if it came down to such a slim margin, if she had told him, he would have voted no, and they would have left.
Do you think he would have voted no?
That's a good question.
Yeah, like it's easy for him to say like, you got to get out of here. But let's be very clear. It don't look like he's like, okay, now that I know you're here, I'm now aligned with you and we are going to get out of here together. It's kind of like, no, I want to work with you and make sure that you survive. But I don't think he's turning his back on that money. I think that at the end of the day, he's always going to vote yes. Because again, we saw all these other people begging to go out. And you think this unborn child that he did not want is going to be the reason why he decides to go? Nah, he's sticking around. Because how you going to take care of it? That was the other thing. He said,
yeah.
You can't raise a baby. You don't have any money and you're on all this debt. You can't even raise it. So now we both about to quit and go out here and struggle and bring our debt to this child together. Nah, he gonna let her try to quit, or he gonna hope that she dies in the meantime, or maybe he'll hope that they win it together and can split the money. But I don't think he's gonna quit at any point. Like it's gonna get tough, and it won't be because of the baby.
Do you think there will be a moment where he falls on his sword, perhaps quite literally, to protect her, to basically be like, continue on with the baby and leave me behind?
I really wish I thought he had that in him, but based on what we've seen so far, a lot of these characters, like they're addicts when it comes to this gambling thing.
I mean, literally, yeah.
Yeah, and they can't turn it off. Like, every time you think you're winning somebody over, it seems like, well, and with the numbers dwindling, it's a lot harder to pull the trigger on leaving. It's like, okay, now you can go, right? You've seen people die, but you've also survived, a couple games. There's only 3 more episodes after this. You can make it 3 more episodes. Imagine how much money you'll get if you just make it 1 more episode. Let's say we killed 30 people. That's a big difference in the amount of money you were going to get at first. Could change your baby's life. You can get your baby a trust. Maybe you can set your baby up for future. That's a future millionaire baby you could have. So I could see them being put in a situation where maybe they have to choose. But if he had the choice, I think he's always choosing himself. Now, if things happen in the next couple of days or episodes where they're going to go through a lot of stuff in these next couple episodes, maybe his heart will start to warm up to the idea of being, some type of a parent, or or even just trying to make sure that he can make the sacrifice so that this baby will survive the Squid Game. But it's going to be tough.
Well, the dynamic that I am actually much more intrigued in, and I honestly don't know where it will go, is actually in the team that 222 joined, Inho. Because remember, Inho's story, right, is a little bit of this dangling participle of like, my wife was pregnant, but she had this disease and she refused to terminate the pregnancy, and basically it killed both of them. I got to imagine he's feeling a certain way upon seeing a pregnant contestant. The question is, does he empathize with that? Or does he say, like, if my wife didn't deserve to live, then you don't either?
Right. Or is there some resentment, right? Like, my wife would not save herself, and now here you are doing the same exact thing. When MG Coin tells his story and says, yeah, I asked her to get the abortion, and like, and here she is putting herself in a situation where she's got this baby on the way, and she's in these dire situations. First of all, Squid Game is too stressful for you to be trying to have a baby. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes,
that's just bad for the baby's body automatically, right? Like, that's just automatically down to where I'm like, ooh, this was a choice. But now Inho's gonna be looking like, yeah, you could have saved yourself. Like, I'm looking at you like I was looking at my wife, like, what are you doing? Save yourself, And I could see there being some resentment there, or even like you were saying, where he's like, nah, I really empathize. I've been in a situation where, we were against a rock and a hard place, and you are choosing to have a baby to term, and it could be bad for you, but you're not willing to, to do what you need to do to make sure that doesn't happen. So maybe he wants to look out for her. I think there's a lot of different ways this can go, and they all just happen to end up on the same team. Speaking of the teams, when they're choosing teams, Mike, I do love that a pattern that we see in Squid Game and in most reality TV shows that we watch is that there's always a boys' club at some point, right?
Oh,
there's always
so much rampant misogyny that exists. Because when you don't know what the game is, for some reason, the blanket assumption is always going to be, well, it's something with strength and something with speed. So we got to find as many men as possible and join up together.
Yeah. I think that we saw it in the first season, and we saw that it also doesn't necessarily work out like that. Where the size or physical strength is not always something.
Can't always beat them with these, but you can always beat them with this.
Right, or your tongue if it's the cookie game, right?
Yeah.
And so but we've seen people team up and they have to go up against their own team, have to go up against other teams. So you really don't know what you're doing, but it seems like the majority always defaults to like, we got to get some strength because God knows what we're going to be doing. It's like their last game was red light, green light. I don't think strength is necessarily an indicator of what you need.
Lots of ageism as well. Whatever happened to respect your elders, Chappell? Of like, basically, it seems like any contestant who's over a certain age, they say, no, can't deal with you.
Yeah, I'm definitely not gonna disrespect my elders in front of Inho because he will slap the hell out of you. Like, he's not gonna go for that. But they have it to where a lot of the women and the older people are really fighting for positions to get on one of these teams. And I started looking at some of the guys' teams and thinking, honestly, if y'all just assess the team a little bit more, you'd know that some of these guys you don't want with you. You don't want these people. Like Thanos is tripping balls.
Yeah.
Dude. And I would not want to be teamed up with Thanos and the other nervous tweaker he has with him. So he's like, you are on the same team with them. That's a bigger problem to me than anybody else. Because God knows what they're going to do. He might just start dancing or something like that in the middle of this, and we might run out of time.
I will say, though, as erratic as Thanos is, he does seem to be a nicer person when he's on drugs, considering that, like, the first half of the episode, he's just wailing on MG Coin. Second half of the episode, and maybe it's just to, like, get some Gi-hun. He's like, oh, yeah, the more the merrier. Come on, mousy guy. You come with this lady I'm trying to mac on right now. We'll all work together.
And the Mac can be happening every time. His man is ridiculous.
See, that's the thing, is that he's almost like too harmless to be a villain at this point. Yes, he did push a bunch of people down, but like, especially now with Inho in the game, he is the much smaller. He's the mini boss by comparison. We're supposed to laugh at all of his antics.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about this man. The only reason I would get concerned is if he somehow loses that crucifix filled with the drugs. Like, if he loses that, I think at that point we're screwed because he's going to lose it. He's going to start going through some withdrawals. He's going to start acting really weird. Make sure you keep that man doped up as much as possible. And He's starting to share with his friends too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing as well, is that you'd say, oh, he's going to run out eventually. I mean, remember, it is 6 games in 6 days. So, like,
Mhm.
the best case scenario for him and worst case scenario for us would be that he's really tweaking out at the end of the 6 days, but he probably feels like he has enough of a supply. Though, yeah, to your point, it clearly is a gateway to, his number one goon, who is clearly a junkie and is probably going to keep hounding him for a fix. I mean, let's talk about the game and maybe, again, rating a bit of how we think the known teams are going to do as we carry
Okay.
over into episode 5. So first off, Chappell, what do you think about the 6-legged race? 6 legs, much like a squid,
Like a
brand new
squid.
challenge. What are you thinking about it on the onset here and the demo we got to see in this episode?
Yeah, it was a 6-legged, 5-legged race because the 6 legs pentathlon or something
Yeah,
like that, right? And so you gotta tie everybody up by their feet. They do like a little run the track basically, and then they do a mini game at these different stations, and we get some games we've seen before like Dachi, and
gotcha.
then
Yeah.
some new games as well. And by new games I mean all the rest of the games. I didn't know any of the rest of these games,
Yeah,
and so
so it looks like, and again, apologies for our incredibly American description of these things, but flying stone seems pretty simple, right? There's like a gravestone and you throw another stone at it to knock it over. Then we have
uh,
Gonji, which is like Jax, but I looked up the rules and seem so
it looks
much
hard.
harder. Yeah, so
Yeah.
basically instead of bouncing a ball, you're throwing one jack in the air to pick up the other stones, but there's 5 levels to it. So the first one is just one at a time. The second
Mhm.
one is 2 at a time. The third one is 3 at a time. The fourth one is you hold them all in your hand and you toss one in the air, put 4 down, then you
Flip
toss
'em.
another one, you pick all 4 up. And then the last one, which seems impossible from my perspective, like I would need to have an entire childhood, years upon years, to actually hone in on this final skill, is to toss them all in the air, flip them on the back of your hand so they all land properly, and then toss them again, snatch them all up in your hand, and you win. Seems
Mhm.
absolutely wild, and I think the perfect game to put right in the middle leg here.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're a woman, this is great, right? Because only girls play this game. Apparently, it's like, oh, why would a Marine be playing this? Like, oh, you're a woman, you don't know how to play this game. It's so funny because I was trying to figure out what's the skill set needed for this. I'm thinking maybe it's just a game that was just for young girls. It was just more typical of them playing it.
Mhm.
Where I don't really know. Like, I think we're like a pinch too young to even like really have any experience with jacks. Like, it was a thing, but not a thing. It was like
Yeah.
it existed, but like were people really going out and being like, nah, we're gonna go hit the jacks right now? Remember Pogs? That was a thing for like a week,
Oh,
and so
Pogs are basically Doggy, no, right? Like,
right,
you throw the
exactly.
Pog, you slam the Pog onto the other one to flip it over.
Yeah, and I would say that I probably saw more boys playing with Pogs maybe than
Mhm.
girls or something like that. So maybe there is something to what they're saying, but for the most part, it just feels like oh, okay, we're just gonna let the women do that one. And I will give the woman who in this episode is doing that task, I will give her a lot of credit because I didn't know what she was doing, but you could tell she was locked in and it was hard.
Yeah, so the fourth one is maybe a bit easier by comparison. Spinning top, where basically you just kind of wind up a top with a string and let it
You
go and have
Beyblade
it
it.
spin. Exactly.
Yeah.
Time to rip it in and go. And then the final one, which we haven't got to, though, is called Jeggy. And I looked it up, Chappelle. It's basically hacky sack. It's that's kind of like a little bit of
Oh.
a shuttlecock, and you're just basically kicking it to keep it in the air. I'm not sure if there's like a final move you need to do, but that's gonna be the final one. I mean, what I really like about this game is it's almost Survivor like in the tribal phase of like everyone works together as a group, but you can be the hero or you can make it fail. And in this case, it's not one person getting their dreams crushed, it's 5 in the process because you can sink, as we saw with that poor piss pants guy. You could kill basically 4 people alongside you if you're way too shaky. And what's interesting as well is that the more that you go, the more nervous that you are going to get as well.
Mhm.
And so we'll see what Jeggy's going to look like. Gi-hun is going to be the anchor of this team, and I imagine he's going to get through okay. But it still has to be, you have to put the guy who has nerves of steel on in the end, because otherwise you're just going to be shaking your head off.
Right, because the other thing is that although this is a race, it's also timed, and so we
5
never
minutes
even
to do
got to
this is
see.
wild.
Yeah, we never even got to see Jackie because they didn't make it that far. Both teams were able to, make it through, several of the games, but at the end, there was no winner. Both teams lost. And so that's something we never see in Survivor is that like if you don't, there will be a winner of every challenge for the most part. You know what I'm saying? At least one person will win. Sometimes two, a lot of times more than that in the team phases, of course. But rarely do we ever see Jeff be like, all right, and if nobody finishes in time, nobody wins, and all of y'all are up for elimination, which probably wouldn't be a bad idea. I think that would be, I wouldn't hate that. But at the same time, here it's for your life. You know, you don't finish this in time, and these people are going to shoot you in cold blood in front of all the rest of these people. And if you survive, 011 is going to come back and shoot you again.
And that's the interesting thing as well. And this actually reminds me a bit of the challenge, which is this idea of, the order that you go in ends up affecting things monumentally. You see them watch the examples of teams 1 and 2 and are like, okay, so we should work on this. Okay, so this is what you do. And I think, unfortunately, teams 1 and 2 really don't benefit from the fact that they were the guinea pigs here. They got to showcase what to do, and more specifically, what not to do in front of everybody. So much like the bridge game, right? The later you go, probably the better that it would be. I mean, I think 5 minutes is maybe a little too stringent to set for game number 2. Maybe game number 5, where like everyone has now much more of a hardened / traumatized will, that they're going to be a lot less nervous about it. I feel like a good amount of people are going to die in this game just due to nerves alone.
Yeah, and then nerves, skill will be an issue, and then the interpersonal relationship as well. I think you talked about Survivor and the team challenges. A lot of times there is somebody in a hero role, whether it's your task is to untie the knots, right? And we're all standing on a mat a decent distance away from you, yelling like, "Go, go, do it, do it, do it!" Now you're attached to me, and I'm like pushing you physically and mentally as well, to try to get this done, trying to hype you up, but also try not to punch you in the face, because why you said you were good at this. Why are we standing here still? You're still throwing this rock. And it's not even like you handle a task by yourself. We're still tied together. So if you miss on something like throwing stone, we all have to go and get it. And we have to do that in lockstep. And then we have to line back up, and nobody's foot can be over the line. We all have to adhere to the rules at the same time. So we're bonded together physically and figuratively in a lot of ways. And I think that can be a big problem as well when it comes to finishing these tasks.
So let's quickly just go over, I would say, like, our known teams going into the next episode and how safe they'll be. I mean, Chappell, my simplest answer would be that as much as Squid Game was all about carnage, if you look at the main cast especially, all of the named characters pretty much made it to, I'd say, around the bridge or marbles. So I think there is a fair chance that all 3 teams that we're about to talk about make it through, but maybe we could still sort of assess the chances, and maybe they'll want to surprise us. We talked about Squid Game, the challenge, where they really pulled the rug out from under us numerous times by being like, get to know this person. They're an important character, and they're going to go in the very next game. I mean, let's start with the Thanos group, because it's probably like the most enigmatic. Thanos is really the main character energy that is pumping up this team, because it's him. It's his like number one goon. I am surprised. I wonder if a lot of the Thanos fans, the Thanos, ended up dying in red light, green light, because he has not really gotten a lot of support. Maybe it's also because they saw their like personal hero just absolutely wail on this guy in public. But we have the 2 of them. We have the girl that he was trying to mac on, and then the guy that she brought along as the sort of just like mousy dude. They're definitely the biggest X factor out of the 3 teams we're going to talk about. But again, I think due to the presence of Thanos, they're gonna be okay.
See, I thought that they might be in danger, because I'm thinking, okay, we only got 4 more episodes. Do we really need Thanos? But they really did make a meal out of meeting Minsu, who is I think 125, and he's he's the woman's +1. We have no reason to know that character. We have no reason. Like they're like kind of making a point of highlighting him. And I'm thinking, well, you wouldn't have done that right now just to kill them immediately after. You just don't have to. You could really spend time with another character. And so I think that because of Minsu, I think we're going to get a little bit more information about him before he dies. So I could see them being able to do this. And we got the junkie storyline too, right? So Thanos is a junkie, or at least is here doing drugs, but the other guy is a junkie. And so I think that you don't incorporate a lot of those character beats if you're not going to utilize them as well. Because it's so easy to put maybe like withdrawals in here, or, the scramble for the drugs or anything like that in the game. You can put that in the show and just do so much with it. So 4 episodes left. I mean, 3 episodes left. I think we got to use what we got, to get a little bit further in the episodes. I would like to see them survive, of course. But you're right. The other 2 teams seem like they're pretty lock solid too.
Yeah, so let's talk about what I would say would be the guaranteed safest team, which
Gi-hun.
is Gi-hun, Inho, Jung-jae, Jun-ho, and Chappell, my new favorite, my number 1 guy, Dae-ho. He's 001 in my heart. I'm in love with this man. This
Yeah.
guy's just like between the man bun, between the over exuberance and like the kind of goofy, lanky energy he has. I mean, also the music choices that they make. Again, you and I come from the world of reality TV where music choices are very clear as to like how people want us to feel about certain individuals and storylines. They really give the dodo music to the
Dodo
military
music.
stuff.
He's like, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Sir,
and
yes,
maybe,
sir.
maybe
I
it's
said,
also
"Oh,
because
God."
like Jung-jae is like a little bit of a comic character. Like I said, a little bit of a Samwise Gamgee to Gi-hun's Frodo. Like I did certainly not expect him to be the military man and for him to like really snap into this like motivational drill sergeant mode of like, of course you know how to play it. Of course a Marine would have a diversified set of skills. This is why we're the best, the few, the proud.
Yeah, this is a fun group. It really is. I'm not a big Jung-jae fan because I feel like he's a liability. Like he just like as if you just do what we're told, we gotta be locked in. And he seems like he's making light of a lot of this. And don't get me wrong, I feel like if you are in a life or death situation, I could see why you would make some jokes. I think you and I probably are number 1 and
I
2
was gonna
as well.
say, like, that is a
To
coping mechanism.
yeah.
Top of my list.
Right, exactly. We are going to be the ones laughing on our way to the Squid Game, right? But I still think that you got to be tapped in. You got to be tapped in. A lot of some of this goofy stuff, you got to really start strategizing because y'all are going to die. Luckily, like you said, he's surrounded by the plot armor. But if any point they start to make these teams turn on each other, he's the first to go, right? Like Gi-hun or Inho, somebody is going to have to take out a Jung-jae just in a way that we just get him off the board because he is a loyal, trusted ally to Gi-hun. But right now, he's pretty safe.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that either with Jung-jae or Dae-ho that they have a little bit of Ali energy to me from last season of like, you are too good-hearted for
Yeah.
this game. It's someone like Gi-hun, Inho does point out like, it's not like you didn't have to kill people, but like, if you think about it, Gi-hun did walk away pretty blood-free from his time in Squid Game Season 1. Even his, like, final 2 opponent in Sung-woo stabs himself in the neck fatally. Like, Gi-hun has not actually had to really kill anybody in Season 1. And so, it's not necessarily a game, though, where good guys finish first. And so I feel like there's inevitably going to be a time where our hearts get ripped out and, like, one of these more comic foil characters are going to die on the proverbial battlefield. Let's get into the more interesting group here, the one that closes out the episode. And this is sort of like the riffraff, right? The leftovers, if you will. So these are the people that were not necessarily picked that ended up just finding themselves together. So it is, of course, our mother and son duo, and a little bit of a deepening in the character from the mother's perspective, considering that she has extensive experience being a midwife, at least, and so was able to recognize Jun-ho's pregnant predicament. It might be something further on if, to your point about the stress of playing the Squid Game, if there is an early labor that is triggered, it might be nice to have an in-house midwife there. We do have number 120 as well, Hyunju, who you talk about the misogyny and the ageism, transphobia, also quite rampant in this cast. She is someone that is not chosen for a team until this nice, quiet girl in 095 steps forward and brings her on. And then, truly the X factor of all X factors, even more than Thanos, is 044, Seonyo, Shaman of the Sea here. Listen, Chappella wouldn't be Squid Game without a devoutly evangelical religious person, and here she is.
I love her. She's the worst, but I love her. I'm sorry, I do. When she walks up, all the teams are basically booked up. We're running out of spots here. There's nobody else. She walks up on this group of misfits, and she's like, "You fools, wait till the last minute to add me to your crew." Y'all lucky I even like y'all.
Yeah.
You lucky I want to help y'all out, baby. Because
I should cut you with my knife, she says.
Right. I was like, what? What are you talking about, lady? We barely letting you into the group. But she walked in like, I can't believe it took you this long. The audacity of you to not immediately come and recruit me for your team. Y'all look, y'all just slap everybody. I'll just start cutting everybody here. Get in line. I'm in charge. I love her so much. And then Shaman of the Sea, it's a dope ass nickname. I'm sorry. I don't have a really cool nickname, but Shaman of the Sea is dope.
Yeah. So, what do you assess their chances of being? Do you think they're guaranteed safe just because there are a couple of main cast members here, or could they sort of be the first big surprise of the games where they get killed off shockingly early to start next episode?
I don't think they're completely safe because I think these names are like with the mother and son. I think that's a big enough death to really make you feel the gravity of the Squid Game again, right? Because you could do so much with that. But at the same time, by killing them, they weren't like the draw for the show, right? They weren't. So at this point,
and they're just like a nice, happy surprise.
Right, a happy surprise. Now, again, I will push back on like using like representation, like our trans contestant here, and just being like, all right, we brought them on just to be like, we have a trans contestant, and then kill them immediately. So I'm hoping that the show will allow them to develop a story a little bit more. Same thing with Young Me. We've met her for 2 seconds, and she's like, oh hi, you know, and that's it. So I'm thinking,
do you think a contestant's going to approach her and say, "You remind me of a Young Me"?
Yeah, Young Me. Well, I'm glad you said that because that's my coincidentally, you know. But yeah, I think that team right there has more to give us as far as story goes, and I would hate to see them go. But at the same time, if you wanted to kill some people that actually would make you feel like a little bit like that we would care about, I guess some of the contestants that are about to die, I think we've seen enough from the mother and son to where it wouldn't be the maximum impact, but it would be enough to remind you where we are and what we're doing here.
Yeah, I'm about like 80-20, I would say, that they survive. That like there is a chance that if they really want to make this much darker than season 1, which is a hell of a task to live up to, that they would. To your point, there are so many tropes set up that it would be a little disappointing to do. But like if the point made is everyone under the eye of the squid is equal, then they have an equal chance of dying. We speak about Shaman of the Sea. There's one last thing I want to talk about before we move on, because Chappell, you put this little transplant in my tooth last episode when you said, I don't know about this captain. You know, he's leading us to this place that turned out not to be the right island. And we talked in the beginning about a slip up from Inho. Let me talk about a possible slip up we have here. So surprising to me, Jun-ho still got a storyline here. He's still trying to find this island. Woo-sok is in his pocket helping him along. And Woo-sok has this conversation with the captain. And Woo-sok says, oh, we're trying to go save our friend who's on this island. And the captain says, oh, is that the guy that I met before? And Woo-sok just kind of shrugs it off in the moment, be like, oh, you knew Gi-hun? I don't think he's talking about Gi-hun. I think this captain was in the pocket of Inho. I would say, Chappell, let me really put the tinfoil hat on here.
Do you think?
As far back as the end of season 1, I don't think Inho wanted to kill his brother for many reasons. I think Inho could have hired this captain
to go get him,
to go save his brother. Because again, we don't know exactly what that relationship is, what he wants to do, how Jun-ho would even like encounter his brother upon doing the game. I still think he has a bit of a soft spot in his heart. It's clear he still has some past demons to fight, as was talked about in this episode. I think the captain's a mole, Chappell. I think he has been this entire season, and I think he just gave away the ghost a little bit in admitting that he's been talking with somebody that's involved with the island.
Well, yeah, because our homie just gave up all the information so easily. He's like, what? The island? What happened? How do you know where it is? Well, I guess I could just tell you everything. I wasn't supposed to tell anybody anything, but I'm going to list out a whole entire plan. And it just felt very convenient that he was just asking all these questions to gather this information that as the captain, he doesn't really need it. But it's kind of like he's getting confirmation that now it's out. You know, the word about Squid Game is out and people believe it. Like, no, he's like, I thought it was just crazy talk. No. I promise you, it really happened. We have the proof. We got a guy on the inside. He literally had an implant. Like, he's explaining all of it. I'm thinking, I just don't think that's a good idea. All the captain needs to know is that we need to find the island. That's all. Yeah. He doesn't need to know why. He doesn't need to know who's involved. You're giving him names. You're giving him addresses. He's looking at other people in the round, like, oh, is that what those people in the black are wearing? Oh, okay, I see. Okay, so it's about 8 of y'all. Like, to me, I didn't trust the captain the first time, and now that you're mentioning it, it reminds me of my question about Inho and Jun-ho's like their relationship as brothers. Jun-ho wants to get to his brother, but to do what? The last time you were with him, he shot you off a cliff. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you're gonna get there, are you trying to get revenge because he shot you? Or are you like actually trying to get to him because y'all don't have a bad relationship? And he shot you in the shoulder and sent you off a cliff because if you land in the water, we could probably save you. And it won't draw too much attention to the fact that, you know, you're my brother. And because he had other goons with him, right? So it's like, I got to make sure that this looks good, you know, so people think I killed you. When in reality, I sent somebody out in the water to go get you, and we don't have that bad of a relationship. So I'm thinking, yeah, Captain might be on Team Inho, and I didn't trust him in the beginning, and I definitely don't trust him now.
So we shall see. You know, they sort of have a ticking clock as well. So I imagine that we actually are going to get more of that storyline than I initially thought, considering that despite the fact that for the umpteenth time, the police is not on Jun-ho's side, he says, law be damned, you know, in international waters, anything goes. And so they're going to take to the sea. I imagine we're going to see a bit more of that in the next episode because Chappell, only 3 episodes left. And in episode 5, we will see which team of 5 will prevail. Maybe we'll get another game as well, because we are barreling towards the end of this. We're past the halfway point. Any other things you want to say about 6 legs before we move on?
No, I would love to see if we go back to any of the old games. You know, we've referenced that in Squid Game The Challenge, they threw out Battleship as like a new alternative game, and that box switching game as well. I don't know how many conversations are being had between these two production companies. Like, do they know what's coming in Squid Game season 2, or was it just like Squid Game The Challenge did its own thing in a vacuum, and those two games aren't going to look alike? Because we could use some of those games, but also we could still have new games here. So I want to know if we're getting the bridge, if we're going to be doing the old fun stuff, or is every round going to be completely different and disconnected from what Gi-hun knows? Because that's going to be, you know, probably an indicator of how he approaches this. You know, when they're picking teams, when they're deciding tasks, you know, all those things are going to come into play when Gi-hun is trying to decide, do I give y'all more information? Because it seems like by, you know, trying to convince them to quit, a lot of them are claiming that that swayed them to stay in the game, you know? And so I'm trying to see how he moves forward, knowing that he doesn't know as much as he thought he did, and he might not have as much sway as he needs to. Plus, we have a vote to get through. We have to get through this challenge, and then we still have to vote, and we don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, so I am pressing 0 or O on this show many times over, especially, again, episode 4, as much as you might malign that cliffhanger, it really has built up a lot of excitement in me in this episode. I feel like we're both getting to know stuff about characters, but also then not really knowing their motivations based on that. And I don't know, again, necessarily if everything will play out and wrap up in a neat, tidy package at the end of season 2 in 3 episodes, given that we know there's a season 3 on the horizon. But regardless, I'm having a hell of a time traveling around this rainbow circle with you, Chappell, and we'll do it all again tomorrow. Let us know, of course, your thoughts in the comments. No spoilers about the rest of the episodes. We are moving through this with a completely new head, much like Gi-hun did with this set of games, as we look ahead to episode 5 tomorrow. Until then, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.